This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. You know, some stories, true stories, they just blow you away. And we're going to start with a couple of them. I don't mean to diminish the worst that has ever happened to anyone, but I have to say the hardship of others can really help you put your own life in perspective. We're going to start with Adam Wolf, author of Innocence Beyond the Glass House, a story of injustice and the final battle for freedom.
This is a personal story. I was previously married, and during the divorce proceedings, she proceeded to accuse me of a crime against her stepson that her father had already confessed to. He passed away, and he did the crime, and I did the time. And I spent 5 years in prison and 10 years on a state registry and 25 years of literally a living heck from every segment of society for the false label that was pinned across my forehead.
How was she able to do that?
Well, you'd be surprised at how flawed the criminal justice system is and how it occurred. She told a lot of lies. She told a lot of stories. She convoluted the whole investigation with things that were absolutely not true. The prosecutor swallowed every word that she said, believed that she was telling the truth. And when the victim was interviewed and told a state psychologist that I was not his abuser, he decided to ignore that information and proceed forward with the case and presented a case to use hearsay evidence instead of the truth. And on bad advice of an attorney, I took a plea agreement that sent me to prison for 5 years.
Did you serve all 5 years?
I served all 5 years because I refused to confess to the crime. And they made it very clear that if I would confess, I'd get out early. But I'm a man of integrity, and I could not confess to something that I didn't do, and I did the whole time.
Are you registered as a sex offender?
I was for 11 years, but that's all over and done, and that's why I wrote the book. It tells kind of the beginning of the story, how it all started, and then kind of how it ended, how I made some decisions to kind of find peace in my life and peace with others, with a new name and a new location, and how the story ended. And then in between those two extremes is bits and pieces of how things were and how people treated me and what I was faced with. And hopefully the series will be 3 or 4 more books that actually detail the prison experience, because I kept journals while I was there, and I've got about 3,000 pages of journals to someday write into a series of books.
So you had to change your name, you had to change your identity?
Well, what I did is during the period when I was registered, I had been dealing with so much societal hatred and abuse for so long. And so I made a conscious decision to change my name, move to a new address. I didn't report that on the registry. And for 7 years, I lived in relative peace with my community, with the church I joined. Everything was great. Nobody could look me up online. And then they did find out about who I was, did find out about all my past, reported to the police. I was charged with another felony for failing to register as a sex offender, and wound up doing 6 months jail and solitary confinement, all related to the 23-year-old crime that another man had committed.
This woman that you were married to, did you have children with her?
I did, but that relationship has been destroyed, and we don't have any contact, and I don't have a lot of memories of her. I suffered a lot of abuse in prison because I had a false label on me, and I took a lot of abuse and beatings from staff and other inmates. And when I got out of prison and tried to move into neighborhoods, people rejected me, and I got beat up once by a group of people in my neighborhood. And those incidents cost me about 12 to 15 years of my memory that I just have no memory of.
How do you forgive this woman?
you know, I talk about in the book about my belief in a higher power, especially my belief in a Heavenly Father and my Savior Jesus Christ, and how that sustained me through all of that time. And how I, believe that there were divine beings that were with me and helping me and guiding me and strengthening me. And that was really how I was able to not only get through that whole horrific experience, but I was able to forgive all those who hurt or abused or rejected or name called or did any damage to me in any way.
You know what's disturbing is that, I have interviewed more people than I thought possible, have written books about being falsely accused, of going to jail, of not knowing any better, of being talked into plea agreements, and just, their lives becoming just this horrible mess. It's just very frightening to me how much injustice there is in our justice system.
There is, and I think a lot of people know it's there, especially those who have experienced. I think the criminal justice system doesn't want to believe it's there. One of the things that I found out continually is that the word innocent is a four-letter word, and absolutely nobody wants to hear it. I spoke to both judges in my case, the judge who originally sent me to prison for 5 years, and then the judge who sent me to jail for violating the registry. I tried to talk about my innocence to both of them in the courtroom, and it made them extremely angry.
But somebody else confessed to the crime.
Well, a lot of that information that I gave to my attorney and that the prosecutor had was swept under the table, swept under the rug. It disappeared from files. It was ignored. The judges never saw it. And when I tried to bring it up on my own, they were angry.
So, how are you promoting your book?
Well, mostly I just print out flyers and door hangers and postcards that I take with me wherever I go or wherever my wife and I travel. And we pass them out on doors, on cars, in restaurants, in places of business, just trying to get other people to um, read the book, understand the story, share the story with others, and bring it to light. Here in the Utah area, I send it to some of the probation people that were involved, court people that were involved, and people that are running groups to help those that are falsely imprisoned here in Utah. The negative to all this is I'm going to be on the internet for the rest of my life, no matter what. And anybody anywhere in the world will be able to find me at any given time and read the sordid details, or they can read the book and read the truth. It's just up to them.
All right, Adam, thank you so much. When people told Neville Lloyd he grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, he really didn't understand what they were talking about. Clearly, they didn't know his truth as a child abandoned in his native Jamaica, adopted by a family member who used him as a slave. The name of his book, Blessed by God Beyond Dreams.
Once I write the book and say when I get older and realize what it, slowly mean, I got nothing. I got the opposite. I was abandoned at 6 years old. Like, my mother was born in America, and my grandfather is Irish. My racial marriage was not accepted, so she had to come back to Jamaica. Yeah, when she grew up and she got documents and she left and come back to America, she's an American citizen when she left.
And who took care of you?
My grandaunt, she was like a slave. I grew up and I do everything for her. So that's my grandmother's sister.
And you ended up on a pig farm.
Yeah, I worked with her, and she worked with her. She had an office job at the taxpayer office, and she let me come over there and show me around. And then all of a sudden, I got to go clean the office before I go to school. And then she had a pig farm selling pig, and I've been walking barefoot all my life, and I got a maggot or something, what they call it, from walking barefoot in the pig pen. Yeah, I went through hell. When I get older, I go to a Marvel's movie, and I couldn't go anywhere with all the family. When I come back, and they locked me out, and I went to sleep with my cousin, and they looked for me the next day when I went to school, took me home, stripped me naked. I'm a 13-year-old little boy, and beat me to hell and locked me in the house and missed school for 3 weeks, and I didn't do anything wrong. Blessed by God beyond dreams. I started to find some keys and play with it, and something came to me to build a guitar. And I built a guitar and started to play with the guitar. And I learned piano from my great-grandmother. They were my two favorite. The people that took care for me at the time was my great-grandparents. And I built a guitar, and I started to practice, and then we formed a band. And I'm 15 years old and being a lead guitarist in a band. And all my life changed from that. But I also have appendix, and I almost died because one day I go to school, and I wind up in emergency. If the doctor says if you come tomorrow morning, you'll be dead, the appendix will have ruptured. And when I came back, I found out her son had appendix 3 years ago. And I cursed her off as a 14-year-old little boy with a major surgery, and she didn't come and look for me. And I tell her my mind, and then she says, I hate you. I hate you. I'm going to poison you.
Great.
I took it on my own, and I wrote a letter to the American consulate. and they sent me some documents, and I, go through, and it took me about 8 years. And then while I was doing music, I left Jamaica at 66, and I came in America with my music talent. And
You're so lucky that something horrible didn't happen to you.
yeah, well, this is why I wrote the book. Yes, I've seen it in a lot around here where kids get abandoned. I've seen it, and the direction they took was ugly. Drugs, killing others, and even the one that reminded me when they went to school and shoot up the kids in school. And I say, I got to write this story. Maybe I can save somebody because I went through hell, miss. If there's a movie, you'll be surprised. I went through anything you could think of, and I didn't curse, I didn't abuse her, I didn't do anything wrong. Something with my spirit. I just pray to God, please God, help me, show me a way to get out of this evil. Help me, God. That's what every time she do the thing to me, I walk in the back. It's in the book. I walk in the back of the kitchen and pray underneath a coconut tree every time she hit me and pray the story.
Did you end up having a family of your own?
Yes, I was married, and I becomes a single father at 33, raising four toddlers.
What happened?
Ah, one of my great grandmothers told me, saying, if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say it at all. My great grandparents is the one that was there and was looking, helped me out when I was a little kid. So I don't say anything about her, but she left me with the kids and three girls. I'm a single father, raised three girls, a boy and girl twin, three girls and one boy. And they come to good success.
Well, that's saying something right there, Neville. Thank you. I got up with R.P. Moss at his Martha's Vineyard Bakery, where backyard playtime with his son Clyde inspired a series of books, starting with Duskwing and the Super Spy. Now we have Duskwing Cats and the Dogs of War.
We were playing Legos and playing adventures with the Legos, and we came up with our own characters. And they fit in with some real life characters that are outside of our backyard. The main characters are a blackbird and a little red squirrel. And we have a field out back and big open area, and the animals will come. We had a bird feeder that was up, and all the gray squirrels were keeping the birds from being able to get any bird seed. And a little red squirrel came up and chased all the gray squirrels away so the blackbirds could eat. And that started the story of it, and we were carrying on playing Legos with our characters. The cats and the dogs of war were bad guys coming in trying to take over their treehouse and trying to cause trouble for them. Duskwing is a little blackbird. He's very smart and very courageous, and he's the leader of the group. It's a children's chapter book. The idea is to get kids interested in reading. And right now, there's 2 of them that have been published, and I'm working on book 18 right now. In the book, the characters start getting together. They are young. They go to school, and they've been having a tough time at school with the teacher. And they start to team in together. They move into a tree house, and they have an adventure with the teacher. They're very smart, very ingenious. They build rocket ships, they build armor suits, and a teacher that doesn't think that they're very smart, and they end up outfighting the teacher, outwitting the teacher.
What do they do with these things that they make?
Well, they help out the community. There's a chipmunk empire down below, and they help out the chipmunks, and they help out all the other animals. They live in a huge tree house. And they help out the community. If anything ever happens, they're called upon to help out with the community. The principal sees them as important children and important community members. And when any danger hits, anything happens, they're first called on to help. They were students, but in their world, at 10 years old, they get to graduate at 13 and go on because they're animals, And they go help out the police department. They help out in everything going on. As time goes on, you start to see that friendship's very important. They always stand up for one another. They always believe that in each other, and they always encourage each other. They try to help out anywhere they can. They see wrongs and they right them, and they help out with anyone who needs it. As when things get started for them, they were always the picked on ones, but they banded together and proved that they were right. They were right. I've actually had a student go into college, has used it for her thesis, the books that I've written and how I've done it. How there's not a lot of moral stories. Everything's pictures now and not something for kids to actually read. I have a few teachers that are reading them to their students, younger kids, and having them to try to, build up that want to read again, instead of just looking at pictures and not reading the words. The books are in a few of the school libraries right now, and going into a couple other libraries soon. We've had a couple of the teachers using that as part of their teaching in school. So that's a step, but it's not.
All right. And we only have, 16 more to go, right?
I have 16 more to go.
All right, we'll be waiting for that. Black History Kids Edition is a book Stephen Jones believes needed to be written after it became painfully clear to him that kids in some schools are learning anything and everything but Black history.
Well, it began with, I used to work with some teenagers removing graffiti for the city. It was like a public works task. And I worked with the young adults for probably about a couple of years. And we used to have conversations on the graffiti van all the time. And they didn't know a lot about Black history. Like, they didn't know Egypt was in Africa, for instance. So they definitely didn't know that Egypt was Kemet, and they didn't know Sudan was Nubia. So we started educating each other. They educated me, and I educated them. So when I started talking about Black history, they was very interested. And there was a lot they didn't know, and these were like 12th graders, and some had graduated high school. I was just curious why they hadn't learned this in school. So that's what inspired me to start writing about Black history for kids, try to educate them.
That's pretty pathetic, isn't it?
It is. That's what made me do it. I was really surprised. So in my book, I wrote about some of the kings and queens that had a big impact on African history. Like a lot of people, even today, don't know how many popular kings and queens that there were in Africa. So one man in particular, I know you've heard of Mansa Musa. They never heard of Mansa Musa. So I just described some of the kings and queens' roles. Like Mansa Musa today would be worth $400 billion. He's considered the richest man of all time. If you compare him with today's money, he would be richer than Bill Gates. But, people never heard of him. People never heard of Mansa Musa. So I, started, talking about Mansa Musa and Nefertiti and Taharka, Hatshepsut, Shaka Zulu, and other kings and queens. There were many queens, just as many queens as kings. And that kind of gives even young females, something to, be proud of, that there were queens that they didn't have no idea that there were these queens, these great queens in Africa. So what I did, I wanted to, just pick out some and just random, there's many. I just picked out some random kings and queens and gave a little brief history about what they did, the country they were from and what they did. I wanted to include the dates, but some dates in African history is not clear because it goes back so far. So you have even scholars kind of estimating the dates, but I don't like estimating the dates. Basically, Black history for kids, and it's kids range from 5 years old all the way to probably 16. So I'm writing another book right now, and this book is going to be titled Black Education for Everyone. So it particularly, shows the education of Blacks, but it's for everyone to read because there's multiple subjects in it. Like I start with economics, something that they don't teach in school as well. I try to find studies that people don't know yet. So it's very important about economics. So that's what I start with. And then I talk a little about history. I also talk about dieting, what you should and shouldn't eat, and And it's going to be a much more thorough book. It's more pages, more information. And this is for adults. This is for kids and adults. So this is going to be I think it's going to be an even better book.
So how are you getting the word out?
I made a bunch of flyers, and I made a bunch of bookmarkers, and I just try to spread it. Like I have a daughter. She goes to UC Irvine, and I have like relatives in like Louisiana and Arizona, and I've just been sending out a lot of information to them, and they've been passing it out. Yeah, I actually did a couple of lectures at Oakland Technical High School in Oakland. I did a little lecture at UC Merced out here in California. It's a UC. And I went to a couple of like elementary schools, and I made some calendars and posters. I went to elementary schools and passed out a bunch of like thousands of calendars and posters and bookmarkers.
That's great, Stephen. That's the way to do it. Thank you. William Zalewski was devastated when he lost his brother Walter, and going through his possessions wasn't easy. But it was in a drawer that he found a bound manuscript entitled The Pooh Man, and he decided to take the step his brother never did by publishing it.
So his legacy lives on. Here we are, almost over 4 years, and the book was published last December. And of course, Page Publishing helped me to do all this.
What happened?
Well, he had a heart attack, and unfortunately, he's a heavy smoker. He did not know that he had 3 blocked arteries.
How old was he?
He was only 65 when he passed away. So Walt was quite young when he died. He was a mortgage loan officer, and he had his own firm out in Montclair, New Jersey. He had several people working for him. And when they would ask Walt to do writing, Walt was the writer. So he was a fabulous writer. I'm kind of teary-eyed now, just apologize. But he helped a lot of people get homes and cars, and helped people save their homes, too. So he was a great, great man. And he was a writer. He liked to write. So this is what he accomplished in his lifetime. So I'm very, very proud of my brother.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. So what's the book about?
And the book is about 4 college grads. They get back together and they tell their stories. And that's basically the whole point of the book. It talks about Stanley and TJ and their adventures, and how the 9-to-5ers come in off the train. They go over to the office and they go in for their nice beverage. And that's when their wives meet them over there and pick them up. The Pooh Man, the name of it is that they're on Route 22, TJ and Stanley, and they missed a turn. And he goes, "Hey, you missed a turn." He goes, Pooh Man. So that's basically how my brother invented the name of the book. It talks about Newark, New Jersey. He talks about Dominic. Dominic was a district attorney over in Newark, and he's sitting down having a nice cocktail with Dominic. They're talking about, they're going to have to throw the weight onto one of the characters in the story, that he's at fault for the corruption that went on in this particular town. I'm not going to mention any towns, but it does talk about that, so that the downfall of all this corruption is going to be thrown on the one weight of this one guy's shoulders. My brother was a graduate of Seton Hall University. There is an actual book, The Pooh Man, in their library, so that any college students can take the book out and read it. Therefore, the book is out there for many people to see today. I do a platform for the book. I've created a website on Facebook for Walter. It's The Pooh Man. We also created through the Pocono Record buy.thepoohmanbook.site. So if people were to go to that, they'd actually come up with Walter's site on the internet. It has right now up to over 100,000 hits.
So that's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alice. I appreciate that.
All right. And you're a really good brother. You're a really good brother.
Well, yes, my brother was 7 years older than I am. And he was always there for me. So I want to do this for him. And he is an American author today, which I'm very proud of.
Well, you should be. Thank you, Clyde. Danae's story takes care of her disabled mom and grandfather in Midway, Georgia, where writing is her escape. Her book, Claw's Virus Age, is the first of many she plans to publish.
Nothing much to it. A story just popped up in my head one day, and I got on my laptop and start typing, and it's been going ever since. Story is about a young man named his name is Raz, and he has his parents named Kate and Connor, and everything was going fine until the father started acting very cruelly towards his son. By the age of 3, he made him work at a casino, treating him bad in front of everybody because he was appearing kind of sickly and frail looking. And after a while, the mother found out, and she didn't like it. And one day, Raz looked kind of sick. So one day, the father left without the son. But the mother she moved away from the fathers, and she divorced him. And then she moved all the way to New York, where she raised her son alone, with the help of her grandparents, who was in New York already. And by the time he turned 19, before he can go to college, he was kidnapped by these rogue scientists, people who are only supposed to work on animals and stuff, but they kidnap people, and they kidnap Raz, and they put some sort of liquid or something called burgundy brew into him and changing him into this monster of fate and destiny. After he turned into this monster, he turned on these rogue scientists. He killed the main 5. There were 5 main scientists at the time. He got rid of all of them and caused so much destruction to the place where they took him at, and he escaped. And even after all this happened, he didn't really want to become really evil, but he still wanted vengeance on his father. But before that, he got rid of the evil leader of New York, who was the business president at the time, and he and his girlfriend got rid of him, and then Raz became the new business president. And after that, after his father heard what happened to him, his father sent the 5 same people that used to make fun of Raz at the casino years ago when he was little, and then got rid of all of them and vowed to hunt his father. And after a long series of events of trying to catch him, sent armies and after his father, and he couldn't get escaping. Oh, his mom, she helps him get vengeance as well. After she heard that he became the new leader of New York, the business president, what he's called. He has the power to start or shut down any business he wants to. Because karma is a boomerang. It will come back to haunt you.
We can only hope, Danae. We can only hope. And I hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Thank you, authors. Thank you for joining us and sharing your stories. Did you miss anything? You did? No, you didn't. Because if you did, just go to 710WOR.com and download the podcast. We have a new one every single week. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. I'll catch you next time.